Welcome back. In this section, we're going to talk about some internal structures. But before we go back, let me show you these little stuffed things I've been using when I was talking earlier in the semester. This actually is a testis with an epididymis and a vas deferens. And this you might think is a sperm, but it's actually not, because if you notice it's quite a bit larger than testes. This actually was an appendix. Anyway. Internal structure. So let's start on the posterior aspect of the urinary bladder, where we have the vas deferens, which has terminated medially with this ampulla area of it. Just lateral to the ampulla area of the vas deferens on each side is the seminal vesicle. So remember, this is the size of your pinky finger. It's quite large. And the seminal vesicle has ciliated pseudostratified columnar epithelium, not because sperm are traveling here, but to move contents along. It produces a lot of fluid. Inferior to the urinary bladder, we have the prostate gland, and in the prostate gland, we have the prostatic urethra, where urine goes from the urinary bladder through the prostate gland. And connected to the prostatic urethra is the ejaculatory duct. So in this picture, you clearly can see this is the vas deferens coming along, and this is its tubule, and then this is the seminal vesicle, and the two openings coalesce to form the ejaculatory duct inside the prostate gland, which then dumps both of their contents into the prostatic urethra about halfway through the prostate. Below the prostate, in the sling, the pelvic diaphragm, there is a gland close to the bulb of the penis known as the bulbourethral gland, also known as Cowper's gland. So, internal male anatomy, review the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland with its two structures, and the bulbourethral gland. So make sure you can find them on all three pictures. So this is anterior, just the organs. This is a sagittal view, and this is a posterior view. All right, awesome. We haven't talked about the penis yet, but we're going to talk about the penis now. So in the penis, as the urethra continues from the prostatic urethra through the membranous urethra, then we have the penile urethra. The head of the penis is known as the glans penis, and before you are circumcised, or if you are not circumcised, there was a foreskin, which is known as the prepuce. So, talking about the penis, if we do a coronal section of it, it kind of looks like a monkey's head, because there are three cylinders of erectile tissue. So the erectile tissue that surrounds the prostatic urethra is the corpus spongiosum, and that actually makes all the contents of the glans penis. And then in the penis, there are two fairly significant arteries that have erectile tissue where the spaces are quite a bit larger. And so each of these is called a corpus cavernosum. So the three erectile tissues are going to be important for an erection, and they play a role in a satisfactory sex life and orgasm, obviously. Also, on the dorsal side of the penis, there is a superficial dorsal vein. So let's talk about secretions and fluids and what comes out of the penis that isn't urine. And so to understand what it is, we need to go back to the seminal vesicle, which secretes seminal fluid. And about 60% of the seminal fluid comes from the seminal vesicle, which means 40% doesn't. So the part that comes from the seminal vesicle has a high fructose content. In other words, there's sugar there, an energy source, right? What's the energy source for? To make ATP. And who needs ATP? Us. that sperm. Now we're going back to pretending this is a sperm. Okay. In addition, there's prostaglandins, which are hormones that are going to cause uterine contractions. So when the seminal fluid gets there with the sperm, you know, the uterus is going to contract down a little bit, which means there's less distance for Mr. Sperm to travel through. And then thirdly, there's this protein called seminal gelin, which does exactly what the name sounds like. It's kind of like a gel, becomes a sticky glue. So when the sperm comes out, it sticks it to where it comes out as you finish your sexual escapades and gymnastics, whatever. It's not going to be plopping out. It's got this gel to hold it in place. The second organ that gives us seminal fluid contributions is the prostate gland, and this is where about 30% of this fluid comes from. And it has two important components we're going to learn about. It has an antiseptic in there, you know, just in case there's any bad germs around. And it also contains another protein which is going to ungel Mr. Sperm after about 5 or 10 minutes. Then this gelatinous seminal fluid just turns into this watery fluid instead, and he can swim away. And the third organ that contributes to the seminal fluid is the bulbourethral gland. Yeah, you could have guessed that one. It only is a small minority, well, it's a tiny little gland. But it contributes some very important stuff. It contributes mucus. Why? For slip sliding along, for lubrication, and that mucus is alkaline. So the mucus, not only for lubrication, helps clean out anything that might have been remaining in the penile urethra, whether it's sperm from a previous escapade or whether it's dried up remnants of some urine in there. You know, we don't want to kill Mr. Sperm because he wants to get her pregnant. So why is it alkaline? Because the vagina is very acidic. It's a self-cleaning oven with a very low pH, and if Mr. Sperm goes in there, he dies. Okay, so it needs to be neutralized. All right, so now we can talk about what semen is. So semen is seminal fluid plus the sperm. So when we look at an ejaculate, the average ejaculate is about 5 cc, about the amount of fluid that is in one of your small kitchen spoons that you stir your coffee with. Now, if you've ever thought, oh, hell no, it's more than that, well, that's how much it is when it comes out of your body. And remember, it's much thicker until that seminal, you know, gelin gets rid of, and that PSA kind of liquefies everything where it looks like, you know, you got a cup of fluid there. You don't. It's a teaspoon, 5 cc's. Okay. Of that small amount of fluid, about 97% of it is seminal fluid. Okay. So the vast majority of semen is seminal fluid, which means only about 2% of it, 3%, up to 5% if you have a high sperm count, will be sperm. So if you had a teaspoonful of that fluid and you took out 5%, would you be able to tell? No. So here's the thing, ladies, you can't tell from volume whether or not he has had a vasectomy or not. Why is it called a vasectomy? Because you clip the vas deferens so the little swimmers can't get through there. Because otherwise he could give you 500 million sperm in one ejaculation. Yeah, that's why you're making 85 million a day. Okay, now usually a man doesn't ejaculate 500 million at one time. Usually it's closer to maybe, you know, 350 million, 250 million. But 500 million is a distinct possibility and happens not rarely. With that, we are done with this section. And I will see you again shortly as we continue our exploration of the male